Good morning. Insomnia, it's such a beautiful thing, isn't it? Okay. I did sleep for a little while, but I went to sleep way too early. That's what happens when you have a full and interesting day. And so I went to sleep really early, and so now I'm up at 3. So I got about 2 hours and then I'll be out the door. So, um couple of things. I know I'm gonna go over the first part of Juan Martinez, the prosecution with Jodi Arias. But before I do that, the other day I featured I discussed not featured, but I discussed a story coming out of Houston about a 15-year-old girl who whose boyfriend, a 17-year-old, her boyfriend called her outside or caught her outside. She was walking her dog, had her lay down on the ground, and he emptied 22 bullets into her back, killed her. Right? This is Houston. So, Wednesday afternoon, he made bail. He's out. This isn't a guy that had the heat of the moment, freaked out, pushed her, punched her in the head, even grabbed her throat in anger. He was calculated. He waited for her to come out of the house, and then he had her lie down on the ground where he put 22 bullets into her body. Basically emptied the clip. They gave him a bail or a bond of $250,000. That's for a 17-year-old. $250,000 for 22 bullets in her back. A 15-year-old child helpless as she lay on the ground with her face in the dirt. And the Houston judge wanted a $250,000 bond for this animal. And he is out. So the young lady that was murdered, her name is Diamond Alvarez. And the mother of Diamond is absolutely devastated. I mean, it goes without saying. You don't even have to say it, right? She's devastated. She is talking to the news, the reporters. Her name is Anna, and she said, it's horrifying. You watch an animal murder your child, not just kill, but overkill, right? Just complete abandonment. That 17-year-old was in the middle of complete and total abandonment. He could do whatever he wanted to do. He did not experience any boundaries, no limitations. Nothing was off the table. She did something he didn't like, and he had to teach her a lesson. What are we doing? What is going wrong that we have a 17-year-old boy who's capable of looking at his young love and putting 22 bullets into her back? Are we gonna like set some rules here? Are we gonna set some boundaries and say, hey, you can't listen? I know this may come as a surprise to you, but we don't put bullets into people's bodies. Not one, not two, not 22. And so you keep them on a $10 million bond. I don't know, for the safety of the community, maybe. These idiot judges in Houston, driven by Lena Hidalgo and Mayor Sylvester, and I don't even want to talk about the prosecutor. They have instilled a culture that says be sweet to the criminals because they're our voters. And the net effect is that they are destroying communities because these animals, like this guy, they are running wild. Let me tell you what happened to me yesterday morning going to work. I couldn't believe it. It was one of those moments I wish I had one of those the dash cams. I was wishing I had a dash cam. There were a lot of people on the road. I had not gotten up on the interstate yet, but it was a 4-lane highway. But there was a red light, and then on up past the red light, maybe a quarter mile, the 2 lanes turned into a single. So it was 4-lane highway. It turned into a 2-lane highway, right? And when I was coming up on, a couple of miles before getting to that red light, and speed limit's 55 in that area, and coming up on that within a couple of miles, and this red like a Bronco maybe, or a Jeep, it comes flying past me. I'm talking about flying. I was probably going 60, 65, and it was like I was sitting still. He blew past me like nobody's business. There were also some tanker trucks, like that had oil or water trucks. Red, never forget it. There were several of those in the same, mixed in where I was driving. So this red truck comes flying by, and then and so it scared me because he was going so fast. So I moved out of the way when I saw him coming. He blew past me. And then this other truck tried to follow behind him. It was like a white extended cab. And it tried to get around and it couldn't. And we were coming up on that red light. And so they both got stopped. They both got slowed down. I was in the left lane. They were both over in the right lane. I think they had 2 cars between them, right? And one of the cars ended up going off to the right, taking a right. That left 1 car. And then as there was an 18-wheeler in front of me and an 18-wheeler behind me. And as the light turned green, then we started moving, and the car that was separating the red truck and the red Bronco and the white truck, that car turned off to the right, also turned off the right into a gasoline station. And we had already picked up speed. We were going. So the red truck floored it when the light turned green. The red truck just floored it, and he was able to get up and get in front of the 18-wheeler that was in front of me. When the last car turned into the gas station, then the white truck again floored it and passed me up and was trying to get up ahead of the 18-wheeler. But it was exactly where the road was going from 4 lanes into 2 lanes. So he ran out of road. He ran out of asphalt, right? And I guess he didn't recognize that. I guess he thought he could still be on the shoulder or whatever. But there was a big hole. As he came off the end of the asphalt, there was a big hole there. So he hits that. He jerks the wheel of the truck right in front of the 18-wheeler. I mean, right in front. Though we were probably up to 50 by then, maybe 55 even. And he jerks that wheel over right in front of the 18-wheeler. The 18-wheeler just locked his brakes up. I mean, it was smoke going everywhere, loud, it's horrible. And I had an 18-wheeler behind me. There there was a car beside me to my right. And I knew when I went to slam my brakes on, I thought, shit, he is coming in my back seat. I was horrified. I was afraid to go to the left because the white truck was spinning, right? It was spinning into the oncoming traffic because the 18-wheeler hit him. He hit the back end when he jerked over to the left. 18-wheeler, he slammed his brakes on, but he did hit the white truck, which then sent the white truck spinning back like toward like where I was. And there was nowhere for me to go. And I was like, oh my God, I hope this 18-wheeler is watching, what's happening. But anyway, so everybody just sort of spread out and came to a stop, where you could find. um And of course, another car came from the other side, hit the truck again, and finally bumped it out off into, the median. When of course, the guy that was driving the 18-wheeler, when he got out of his truck, he was loaded for bear. He was furious. I mean, the look on his face, he was furious. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to let you deal with that. I'm going to let you deal with that. And I'm going to go on to work, but I'm mad. Right. So once I got up maybe another 2 miles, maybe 3 miles, 2, 3 miles, the guy that was in the red truck, he was pulled over to the side of the road and he was leaning out of his truck vomiting. So what do you think these bozos were doing? What do you think these two dumbasses were doing when the whole world was getting ready, to go to work? These guys had probably been out drunk all night, right? And so then they get on the highway and become a nuisance to regular people just trying to live a good normal life. So there will be no kind of accountability for those bozos if they can't even hold a 17-year-old who executed a 15-year-old child. If they can't hold him in jail, what makes you think that they would hold one of these road rage people in jail? So when I say Houston is becoming another Chicago, I'm not kidding. It is out of control. And Wednesday afternoon, this guy walked. He's out. De Leon is his name. And Anna, the mother of Diamond, is devastated. Her 15-year-old daughter died in her arms with the puppy jumping around her body, wondering, what's wrong with mom? Why isn't mom getting up? He's out. He is out right now. He is walking the streets of Houston, Texas. Now, he was ordered as a condition of his bond. He was ordered to remain under house arrest. He has to wear an ankle monitor. He's not allowed to leave Harris County. Oh, well, that really punished him. You know how big Harris County is? He can go to a Astros game. He can go to a Rockets game. He can go see the Texans play. He can go to concerts. He can do whatever he wants to do if he can't leave Harris County. The investigators said that they want to question 2 more people who they don't think was involved in the shooting, but were observers. They were witnesses to the shooting. And so Crime Stoppers is asking you to contact them. The Houston Police Department Homicide Division is 713-308-3600. Crime Stoppers is 713-222-8477. And if you you want to look up the story, the young woman's name is Diamond Alvarez. Her mom's name is Anna Machado, but the 15-year-old that was killed is Diamond Alvarez. So I'm aghast. I'm in amazement that this bozo is out walking. This It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Okay, now then, so I hope everybody is doing well. I want to look at Jodi Arias. So we had watched a little bit about Jodi Arias talking about like her manipulation tactics, right? I talked about this thing called psychological reactance, ANTS. And trying to understand some of what people do through just having the awareness that they're being observed. But when Juan Martinez got up to do the cross-examination of Jodi Arias, it was a whole different ball game. And frankly, I think it took the defense by surprise. I think the defense was shocked at what it was that Juan Martinez threw at Jodi. Now, he was working with a psychologist from the University of Arizona, and Dematia, was that lady's name? I think it was Dematia. He was working with her, and I really believe she must have worked with him in terms of managing this kind of person. Let me put it this way. A person that has this particular personality disorder, you have to know what is driving them in order to try to get some kind of information. If you don't, then they will dominate and they will control everybody else in the room. And so it is so interesting to watch Juan Martinez do the cross-examination of Jodi Arias, if for nothing more than to watch how he is handling her, right? So that he can try to guarantee that it's his courtroom and not Jodi's courtroom. Because Jodi's one of these people, she takes over. No matter where she goes, she makes herself the center of attention, like Casey Anthony, right? Okay. So let me, am I sharing it? No, I haven't. Okay. Okay, now it was day 21 of the trial, but this is her the first day. This is the first part of the prosecution's cross-examination of Jodi Arias.
That's my sister. She's not done.
Well, do you remember having a conversation with Travis Alexander?
Oh, sorry, I've got it on fast. Okay, let's go back a little bit.
Correct. Yes. And that's a picture of you, correct?
Yes.
Right here. And the other one is a picture of your dumb sister, Angela, correct?
That's my sister. She's not dumb.
Well, do you remember having a conversation with Travis Alexander back on May 10th of 2008?
Yes.
And do you remember that you tape recorded that conversation?
Yes.
And during that conversation, isn't it true that you said, but I honestly think, talking about Angela, she's a little bit dumb. You said that, right?
Yes, I called her dumb and stupid.
Did I ask you whether or not you called her stupid, ma'am?
No.
I asked.
Okay. So you can see the looks on the defense's face. They're taken back by the fact that Martinez jumps up and says, "Hold on a minute. That wasn't my question. I want you to answer only my question. Why is he doing this to her? He's doing this to stop her from getting a foothold with her story. If he stands back quietly and lets her talk freely, then she is so masterful at manipulation that she will pull so far away from the story that he is trying to tell. So he's using the law, which is you've got to answer the question, that when she says something that is outside the scope of what his question is, then he can use the judge and say, "Judge, she's not answering my question." But the way he's got his questions constructed, the defense can't object because she is in fact not answering the question when she does these little extra comments. So he's trying to control the courtroom. He's trying to keep her from using her personality disorder to manipulate the jury.
Whether or not you called her dumb, right? Now
Yes.
take a look at Exhibit 452. Do you recognize the two people there? And that was taken on May 10th. We'll bring it in. Of 2008, right? And this
Yes.
photograph here, exhibit number 413, features the color of your hair, doesn't it?
Yes.
Exhibit 452 also features the color of your hair, doesn't it?
Yes, a different part of my hair.
And this was taken sometime in May of 2008, correct?
This exhibit,
No, exhibit number 452.
I only remember it was the spring, I think.
Of 2008?
Yes.
Now take a look at the back of exhibit 452. It contains the dates on there. Does that date refresh your recollection as to when this photograph was taken?
Yes.
And what date was this photograph taken?
5 days later, the 15th of May, 2008.
And with regard to this photograph, it also features you.
I'll tell you what I see when I look at this photograph. Let me look at the chat and see. Does this remind y'all of another photograph? Does anything come to mind? Yeah, they let him out, Gigi. It's horrifying. Absolutely horrifying. Does it remind you of anybody? I think it's got the same I think it has the same flavor as the photograph of Barry Morphew and Suzanne Morphew. Remember when he's got his arm across the door and it's a black and white photograph and Suzanne is standing in back behind him? This has the same Jodi almost looks predatory. Right? She's got her arm draped over the shoulders, but there's something about the look on her face like, I control this. This is mine. Do you see it? Who agrees that it looks almost kind of a little bit sinister? You know, her little sister's just looking cute, right? She's just standing there looking cute. But Jodi, there's something about the way she's looking. There's something that she looks very controlling. I agree. Yeah. It's like she has a secret, like, if you only knew, right? Now you're going to hear Juan Martinez, prosecutor, you're going to hear him talk about her hair color. And they had the guy that worked at the car rental place. He comments that she had one color hair when she came in and rented the car, but then she had a different color hair when she comes back. And then he sees her on the news or something, and it's a completely different color. So she was changing her hair color daily during this period of time where she murdered Travis Alexander.
And it also features your sister, the one that you also said was stupid, correct? Now, with regard to this name calling, one of the things that we heard through a text message was that you were upset at some point because Mr. Alexander said that you were going to turn out like your mother, or you were acting like your mother. Do you remember that text message, Faith?
Yes.
And in that text message, there was this indication that somehow he was saying something bad about your mother, right?
Yes.
And when you testified, you seemed to get pretty upset about that, right?
I remember getting emotional.
And you indicated that you loved your mother, right?
I do love my mother, yes.
So what he's doing right now is during the original testimony when the defense was questioning Arias, they presented her in a light that said, this is a woman that's just like every other young woman. She's trying to work. She's talented as a photographer or artist. She's talented, and she loves her family. She loves her family so, and they love her, right? So they spent days going on and on about this, how important Jodi and her family were together. Well, now Martinez is, he's not telling the story. He's using her own words to show, hold on a minute. You tell us that your family's important, but what about calling your sister stupid? It's Jodi's little sister. Most older siblings are protective of their younger siblings. Like, I would totally kill to protect my little brother, right? But the fact that she's able to just so freely say, oh yeah, well, my sister's dumb, that's very cold, right? Even when there are siblings that maybe don't like one another very much, they don't generally go around telling people that. But people that have personality disorders, they love to tell it. They love to go out and say, oh, well, let me tell you about my brother who did this, or let me tell you about my sister who did this, or let me tell you about my brother-in-law, blah, blah, blah. They embellish, they make it a lot bigger. But the fact is, it's not true. It's just manipulation. It's just a story that they're using to try to get you to do something that they want you to do. And so I think maybe Jodi was calling her sister dumb or talking down about her mom to Travis to build herself up. Like, I come from a shitty family, but I'm doing so much better than them, because that was Travis's story. Not that he came from a bad family, but that he came from meager beginnings. His mom and dad had some health problems. He was raised by a grandmother. They were on public assistance. But he and his sisters and his brother have done great. They've been very successful. They worked really hard. The grandma did a great job raising them, right? But it was Travis's story that he was going to succeed, irregardless of how his life started, that he wanted to do better than his own parents did. He wanted to be healthy and happy and successful. That was what was in his head. So Jodi had to somehow mirror that. Remember, that's the favorite tool of a sociopath or a psychopath, is to mirror back the person that is standing in front of them. So it's interesting that her stories that Juan Martinez are featuring sound similar to Travis, but hers were complete bald-faced lie. So Juan is trying to let the evidence show that Jodi is not what she has portrayed in terms of being a family girl. That what the defense put on to characterize Jodi was just a character from the imagination, not that that person had no resemblance to the real Jodi Arias, and he does a really good job.
Did you or did you not indicate that you loved your mother? I'm not asking you if you love your mother. I'm asking you if you indicated it.
I don't remember.
Do you have problems with your memory, ma'am?
Sometimes.
So you can tell us, for example, what kind of coffee you bought at Starbucks back on June 3rd of 2008, but you can't tell us what you said yesterday or the day before?
I always got the same drink at Starbucks.
And you can tell us, for example, what type of sex you had with Mr. Alexander many years ago, but you're having trouble telling us what.
Okay, he's going in now. He's gonna start exerting a lot of pressure. Watch how many times she looks over at the defense table, and she's angry with them. She's looking at him right now. She's looking at them and she's thinking, are you gonna let him talk to me like this? Are you gonna like object? Are you gonna do anything to help me? And they can't, because he's well within the rules of the court to do what he's doing.
You said a couple of days ago?
When I'm under stress, yeah, it affects my memory.
I thought you said the relationship with Mr. Alexander was very stressful.
And Nermy's
Some of
thinking,
the sex wasn't.
God, I
Some
hate
of the
her.
sex wasn't.
So you did enjoy the sex then, is that what you're telling me?
At times
You
I
did
did.
indicate at some point that as part of your examination also that Mr. Alexander at some point said something about your grandparents also. Do you remember telling us that?
My grandfather.
Right, that he made some pejorative comment or some bad comment about him, right?
Yes, his name.
Right. And one of the things that seems to be coming out here is that you seem to have a double standard here with regard to making comments about people, don't you?
Yes, I do. I do.
And in fact, it's okay for you to make comments about, for example, Angela and call her dumb and stupid, right?
No,
Well, but you said it, right?
I did.
And we heard on the telephone conversation that you were laughing when you said that, right?
Yeah, it was sentimental, kind of.
Oh,
You were
God.
laughing. You weren't upset when you said it, were you?
No.
And then when Mr. Alexander says something like, you're going to be like your mother, that's when you get emotional and upset, right?
I did.
And that's when you get upset when he says something about your grandfather, right?
That night I was upset.
And, well, you did get upset, yes or no?
No, because I was already upset.
Well, you didn't get upset on the witness stand when you told us about
Oh, yeah,
that?
on the witness stand, certainly.
And so it just seems that it's okay unless it's okay to say these things unless it's Mr. Alexander that's saying them, right? So
No,
you're
that's not
applying a
what I'm
different
saying.
standard to Mr. Alexander, correct?
No.
Yes or no?
No.
And ma'am, one of the other things that we know with regard to this standard applying and that sort of thing is back yesterday, as a matter of fact, you told us that back in August of 2007, you went over to Mr. Alexander's house. Do you remember telling us that?
Yes.
And you remember telling us that at that time, you were broken up with Mr. Alexander, right?
Yes, I'd broken up with him.
Well, you broken up with him or he'd broken up with you? One of the two, correct?
I broke up with him about a month
And
before.
you broke up with him on June 29th of 2007, right?
Yes.
But you felt that it was okay for you to go over to his house in August of 2007, didn't you?
After he told me.
Yes or no? Did you feel it was okay to go over to his house?
I said yes.
And when you went over to his house, you indicated that you knocked or you did something and that nobody came to the door, right?
I went to his house a lot in August, so it depends on the
Ma'am, I'm
incident you're
talking
referring
about the
to.
incident that you told us about yesterday. Do you remember the one that you related that involved the killing? Do you remember telling us about that?
I did not knock.
And you did go over there, and at some point you started to peep in to the house, didn't you?
Yes.
So that means that you don't know if you knocked, though, right?
I did not knock. I know I did not.
So you went around the back then to look, right?
I went around the back to get in.
You went around the back then, right?
Yes.
And when you went around the back, you're telling us you went around the back to get in, right?
Yes.
But when you got to the back to get in, you started to look at what was going on, right?
I glanced in as I was walking to the sliding glass door.
She is, oh my God, it's so hard to listen to her.
Then you were from outside looking in, right?
Yes.
Never went in, right?
No, I ran out of the backyard.
You never went in, yes or no?
I said no.
And when you went and looked, you saw something that upset you, right?
Yes.
You saw Mr. Alexander, right?
I didn't know it was him at
Yes
first.
or no? Did you see him during that encounter? Pardon?
I didn't know it was him at first.
You didn't see him when you were there that night?
I did afterward, yes.
That night, ma'am, listen to my question. That night, did you see Mr. Alexander inside that house? Yes or no?
Yes.
And inside that house, there was a female, right?
Yes.
What's the name of the female?
He didn't tell me her name.
I'm asking that. Did I ask you with?
See, she's playing games, and he knew that she was going to play these games, right? So she does know the girl's name, young woman's name that Travis was with that night. And the reason that she knows is because she's a witness. She's already been on the witness stand, right? So Jodi is very well aware of who the woman is and what her name is and where she lives, and probably knows how tall she is and her weight, because Jodi is a stalker. Jodi is one of these people with a personality disorder that is so difficult that when someone crosses her and she is unhappy, she goes and hones in on them. She begins to watch everything they do, may even keep a notebook about things that the person does that has hurt her or upset her. And Jodi will forever have a vendetta. She will forever be looking for an opportunity to hurt the person that she perceives has crossed her in some way. It gets obsessive. It gets crazy. I've seen some crazy stories. And really, for all intent and purposes, she can't help it. That's why it's called a personality disorder, because it's personality features that all of us have, right? It's just a natural part of being people. But these individual factors get out of control and interfere with every domain in their life. So she's playing games with Martinez. She's being smug. She's trying to show how smart she is. And she just comes off looking at like an arrogant, self-obsessed, cretin.
Pardon?
I didn't know it was him at first.
You didn't see him when you were there that night?
I did afterward, yes.
That night, ma'am, listen to my question. That night, did you see Mr. Alexander inside that house? Yes or no?
Yes.
And inside that house, there was a female, right?
Yes.
What's the name of the female?
He didn't tell me her name.
I'm asking that. Did I ask
Look
you
at
with
look how
the name?
pleased she is.
No.
So, did you recognize her?
No, I did not.
And he was there with the female, though. You were able to see her face, though, right?
Oh no,
Yes,
Gigi,
sort of.
she is not smarter than Juan
Yes,
Martinez.
or sort of means two different things.
He's
Yes or no?
brilliant.
Were you able to see her face or not?
Part of it was shadowed from the
Yes or
TV
no,
behind her, so I
Ma'am,
saw part of it.
Judge, she's not answering my question.
Ms. Arias, listen carefully to the question and answer only the question you are asked.
Okay.
You may continue.
Could you see her face? Yes or no?
Part of it.
But you were able to see that they were making out, right?
Oh, yeah, they were.
And so is that a yes? They were making out, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Okay.
she
And
does
part of
not
what
want to
you
give
also
him
saw was
any
that
control.
The brassiere was off, right?
I did not see that. I just saw her rehook her bra.
Pardon?
I didn't see it all the way off. I just saw her
You
rehook.
indicated that you saw her hooking the brassiere back on, right? You
She
told us
was
that
rehooking
yesterday,
it.
yes?
She was rehooking it, yes.
So you did tell us that yesterday, right?
Yes.
So that means that at least that her bra was unhooked, right?
It was unhooked.
And you stood there and they stood up in reaction to something that you did? Is that what you're telling us?
No,
They didn't see you,
they didn't see me.
but you saw you. So what happened then is you actually were watching what they were doing then, right?
Briefly, yes.
Did I ask you for how long, man?
No.
I asked you if you stood there and watched them, right?
No,
You didn't stand there and watch them?
I didn't stand there. I saw it and then I turned and ran out of the
So
backyard.
but you saw enough to know that they were kissing, right?
Yes.
You used the term making out, didn't you, yesterday?
Yes.
You were there long enough to see that one of the individuals was Mr. Alexander, not his roommates, right?
Yes.
You were able to see that it was a female, right?
Yes.
You were able to see that the bra was unhooked, right?
Yes.
And the lights weren't on, right?
There was a light.
Well, didn't you indicate that it was like a TV kind of light?
That light. Yes.
Right? So there was no light, there was a television that was on, right?
That's light.
Ma'am,
Oh my
was it
God.
a light or was it a television that was on?
It was light from a television screen.
So are you saying that it was the television that was on then?
Yes.
And from that light, you were able to make.
See, you can see she doesn't want to agree with him. She doesn't want to say yes, right? Because that would be giving him control. So she is trying like hell. The strongest intelligence that Jodi Arias possesses is her interpersonal acumen. She is like Bill Clinton. She can talk to anyone and she can put them at ease and make them believe anything she wants them to believe. So the last thing on earth that she wants to do is to let Juan Martinez drive this conversation. So what you're seeing is she's answering his question, but she's interjecting things to manipulate just a bit off of what his question was. And I mean, he is prepared. He is holding her feet to the fire. He is not allowing her to hijack his questions.
All of this out, correct?
Yes.
No other light was on, right?
Not that I recall.
And then you decided to leave, right?
Yes.
And this was at the point that you were living very close to Mr. Alexander, right?
No.
Well, you were living within 10 miles of him, weren't you?
I was living by Greenfield and Broadway. I don't know the length.
How long would it take you to drive that?
About 15 minutes, depending.
Okay, so it's going to take her 15 minutes to drive from her house to Travis Alexander's house. It's in town. If it's going to take 15 minutes with stop signs and stoplights, they probably live 7-8 miles apart, right? There is no way that she is going to agree with Juan Martinez. She twists every word he says.
On traffic.
And after you saw this, one of the things that you did was that you took off, right?
Yes.
And then you thought about it, right?
Of course. Mhm.
And you felt strongly enough about this that the next day you called your father, right?
I called my parents' house and my dad
Yes or
answered.
no, you spoke to your father.
I did speak to him.
And you were crying, right?
Yes.
And you were upset about this, right?
Yes.
And you told him why you were upset, right?
Yes.
I thought you said before that you didn't discuss these issues involving you and Mr. Alexander.
Not
Boom.
Not typically. You said you didn't yesterday and all the days before. You remember telling us that?
the violence, yes.
Oh, I see. So, but you did discuss the fact that you saw him kissing with somebody else with your father, right?
Yes.
And as a result of that, you decided to go talk to Mr. Alexander about it, right?
Yes.
What in the world gave you the right to go talk to an ex-boyfriend with who, according to you, you'd broken up with? What right do you have to do that?
Objection, Your Honor, so you have to.
Sustained.
Ma'am,
She had broken up like 2 months before she goes over and crawls in his backyard and watches him with another woman on the sofa. She says, "Oh no, I saw it and then I turned away." That is a lie right there, because she says that she saw him making out with a woman. And then for some reason, right there while she's standing there, they get up and the woman's trying to put her bra back on. I would imagine she created a distraction. I would imagine that she got mad, she hit something, she yelled something, And Travis turned around and they saw her, and then the woman said, "Oh my God," and was trying to get herself all put together. And Travis was probably thinking, call the police. This woman is batshit crazy.
Feel that you could go and talk to him about that?
Of course.
Why? Weren't you broken up?
Yes.
You were being territorial about him, weren't you?
No.
Oh, you weren't? Then why in the world would you even care what he was doing?
Because he was trying to court me back.
That's you telling us that he was trying to court you back. If he's trying to court you back, he could have just walked away at that point, couldn't you?
Yeah, I could have at any time.
Okay, remember, her story from her own mouth was that she pulls up at Travis's house, and he had a really beautiful house, a nice 3-bedroom, 2-story brick in one of the new subdivisions. He was doing really well for himself. She pulls up at his house. She gets out. She does not knock on the front door. Think about this. She does not knock on the front door. She immediately goes around to the backyard. Well, like all of these houses that they've been building the past 5-7 years, the back of his house was almost all windows, right? He had big living room area, two-story, living room area. And they were on the sofa in his living room, and she walks in the backyard. She says her own words at the beginning of this. She says, "I did not knock. I went around the back to get in." So she went around the back, she's claiming, to go into this man's house that she broke up with him, is her assertion. She broke up with him 2 months before this happened. Well, why in the world would she want to walk into someone's house that she had no idea was home or not? Right? So Juan Martinez does a really, really great job through these really pointed and well-planned questions. He's able to point out she is still lying to you. She continues to manipulate you, meaning the jury. She continues to manipulate you. Her stories, she adds just enough of a lie to color the way you view her. She did not knock on the front door. She walked around to the back. She claimed originally she was going in. Then she claimed she saw him and she turned around immediately. But, wasn't she hooking her bra? So he is doing a great job revealing the liar and manipulator that she is.
Time, I guess.
Well, at that point, you could have walked away, right?
Yes.
You didn't need him for his paycheck, right? Because he wasn't giving you money, right?
He was giving me money.
Well, that was for some work, but you could have gotten other work, right?
I guess I could have looked.
You guess. You worked at other places. You know you could have gotten other work, couldn't you?
Not in August. It's a very slow season for restaurants.
God
So
almighty,
you're saying
this
that
woman.
You were restricted in only getting work at restaurants, that there's no other kind of work that you could get.
Restaurants is,
Yes or no?
I guess that would be no, but I hadn't thought about it.
So then, in addition to that, you were living in your own place, right?
No.
Well, you were living with Mr. Alexander?
No.
You were living elsewhere, weren't you?
Yes.
You were living in another place, right?
Yes.
Where you were paying rent, right?
No.
Yeah, she's mooching off of yet another person.
So in other words, it was even better for you. You didn't even have to worry about having to pay the rent then, right?
Yes.
Again, that's one of those hallmarks of the narcissistic pathology, is they don't have to pay their way. They believe, how do I say this? They believe that it's okay for them to use other people's resources. These are the people that, go to work. If they have a job, they go to work and they take home rolls of toilet paper from the bathroom. Or they'll go and take 2 notebooks out of the supply closet and take one home with them. in their minds, they don't have any boundaries. The world is theirs for the taking, right? Whatever they can get their little grimy hands on, it belongs to them. And so that is part of the grandiosity of, I am destined, I am special in a way that other people are not. I'm destined for good things, or another way that can come out in a little bit more of a mundane fashion is people that sit around and ruminate, and they feel angry with others, people that haven't done a thing to them, people that have not hurt them, they've done nothing to them, but they can sit around and they can invent this problem in their mind, and they can say, well, this person is not giving me the respect that I deserve. This person doesn't understand that I'm special. This person is not treating me, this person is not recognizing my brilliance, or how funny I am, or how wonderful I am. And they really, it's pathological because it's out of place. If you've got a friend and you're just being friends, you're just hanging out together, you're going places together, it's about shared time, right? It's not about one person has to look up to another person, that one person has to be the leader of the group while everybody else is supposed to be the adoring admirers, right? That's not what friendship is. Friendship is everybody's on an equal footing and you're all together, right? But people like Jodi or Chandler Halderson, they need to be worshiped. They need, the relationships that they cultivate are with people that they perceive are less than. And then they put themselves in a position of superiority. And that is a constant source of narcissistic supply, right? So you see this portrayed in movies with the Mean Girl group, where you got one person who's all that, and then the little friends are yes men, and they're always, oh, you look so pretty today. They're always portrayed as kind of dumb, right? Or kind of slutty. They're always less than the main mean girl in some way. And then the arch nemesis shows up by being the mean girl's equal or better, right? So it's portrayed in movies, and anytime you get a personality style that gets portrayed in movies, that's because it's something really, really shocking. You have to be careful with these kind of people. You have to be really careful because they are very good at manipulating. The problem with it is that they cannot sustain these relationships. They trade them in, and then they have to have a new lackey, a new sycophant, right? So they'll use someone until they've used them up. They don't think they can get anything more out of them. And when their lackey has the realization, oh my God, this person, this woman is not who I thought she was. She's using me. She's making me go out there and be the bad guy while she sits back and reaps the benefits. Or I'm buying her coffee every day. Every day I'm spending $7 on this woman's Starbucks as we drive into work together, and she never buys it. She never takes her car. How much money am I spending on gasoline and Starbucks to give this woman a ride to work? You see what I mean? And when that person says, hey, I got a good idea. Why don't I drive Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and you drive on Tuesday and Thursday? Or why don't we come up with an arrangement? On the days that I drive, you buy the coffee. And on the days that you drive, I'll buy the coffee. As soon as she starts that, trying to look for a way to even the playing field, then the borderline or narcissistic person says, "Oh, they are being so unfair." What? You are acting like you're driving to work anyway. I'm not taking anything extra from you by riding to work with you. Why are you being so rude to me? And you bought me coffee, but you always offered. Never, not once did I ask for that coffee. So I don't know what your problem is, lady, but you know what? I am not going to do this anymore. And so she finds someone else to drive her to work and buy her coffee. And what do you think she's talking about as she's in that other person's car using her resources? She's telling lies about the first driver. She's lying about her. Bald-faced lie. Oh, every day I had to give her money for gasoline. It was unbelievable. Every day, $40 for gasoline. Do you really think it costs $40 for us to drive together? I bought her coffee every single day. I couldn't believe when I heard her telling people at work that she was buying my coffee. I couldn't believe. These people do this. They lie with impunity. They don't care. And their lies are so convincing because they don't feel any remorse about the lie. They don't remember with a narcissist or borderline personality disorder, they don't, boundaries have no meaning to them. They don't think that there's a line you do not cross, right? And so now the first driver is going to work and suddenly nobody will sit with her at lunch. She has no idea why. But eventually the narcissist or borderline will use and discard. She'll love bomb, she'll use, she'll discard. And it'll happen to 2, 3, 4, 5 people. And eventually everybody will start looking at each other going, hold on a minute. Wait a minute. Surely we can't all be bad. Maybe we're not the problem. Maybe the problem is her. She's the one jumping from one lackey to the next. Maybe her stories are not true. Maybe she is lying. Because I know she lied about me. I know what my truth is. Maybe she lied about all these other people that were driving her to work too. Right? So eventually you see you're around these people long enough. I've seen it happen before at work. Believe it or not, there are people that pursue higher degrees because they perceive that will give them power. And so some people with these personality disorders will, if they're intelligent, they will pursue positions of power. Some of them become police officers. A lot of them are entrepreneurs because they envision themselves as being, rich and famous Donald Trump type people. And so you see a lot of those people go into like a MD or PhD, justice, a doctorate of jurisprudence, and they will be these raging personality disorders, and they will lie, they will stab you in the back. It's fairly horrendous. But Jodi Arias is a fairly typical narcissistic personality disorder in that she envisions herself as more than she actually is. She has no accomplishment. At least Chandler finished high school. This chick didn't even finish high school. She dropped out. She can't go look for another job because don't you know she only works at restaurants. And the reason she does that is because that is her profession. She is very skilled. She's had many people tell her she is the best waitress they have ever had. No, Jodi, you're a waitress. That's it.
And so you could have just let that situation alone, but you decided to confront him anyway, right?
Of course.
And the reason that you did it is because you were jealous, right?
No.
And then you did talk to him about this issue, correct?
Yes.
And he got upset with you, right?
No.
He didn't get upset and scream and run upstairs. Isn't that what you told us yesterday?
Yes, he did.
So, ma'am, to go back to this issue involving the text messages, one of the things that you told us was that there was a text message that you sent to somebody by the name of Steve Carroll, right?
Yes.
And that it was a two-part text message, right?
Yes.
In this two-part text message, one part ended up going to Mr. Alexander, right?
Yes.
And that he got upset about it, right?
She's getting nervous.
Very yes.
And after he got upset about it, one of the things that he wanted was to see the second part of this text message, right?
Yes.
And so you lied to him at that point, right?
No.
Well, you fabricated a second text message, didn't you?
After that point, yes.
So are you telling me that fabricating a text message is not a lie?
No, I'm not saying that.
So you did lie to him, Mr. Alexander, right?
Question, ask and answer.
Yes and no.
So you think that sending him that text message and telling him this is the second part of the text message, that's not a lie, even though you fabricated it?
That part was the lie.
God,
And so-
this woman, ugh.
You then were asked the question, well, how did that make you feel when Mr. Alexander was sending you these text messages involving Mr. Carroll? Do you remember that line of questioning? We're applying a
Yes.
different standard here, then, right?
Objection, argumentative.
Sustained.
With regard to this issue of how you feel, isn't that the same way that you felt when you were peeping in his window in August of 2007? Isn't that the same kind of feeling that you were having
The same as what?
as the one involving Steve Carroll?
I don't know.
You were mad
God,
at Mr.
she's
Alexander
such a
both times, weren't you?
manipulator. Ugh.
I wasn't mad at Alexander.
You weren't mad at him, or you were upset with him then, right?
At what time?
Either time.
Steve Carroll, no. The girl from Phoenix, yes.
And so it just seems that it's okay for you to lie to him about a guy, but when it comes to him being with some other girl, you decide to confront him, right?
Yes.
And one of the other things that you told us yesterday was that you were monogamous with Mr. Alexander, right?
Sexually monogamous, yes.
Okay, well,
And
you know,
You
see,
told us you were monogamous.
this is, imagine being married to her, right? Imagine being married to her. Imagine saying to her, hey, I got a bad feeling about things. Are you talking to other men? Have you been like thinking about an affair, or maybe you're in an affair? This is exactly what husbands and wives that have been cheated on, this is exactly what they describe, is this type of word salad where the one sentence has no continuity to the next. That they learn that the person that's cheating, having the affair, that they learn to have 2 or 3 simultaneous conversations that make it impossible to follow the point. All you're trying to ask is, are you screwing around? But they're using these simultaneous settings, storylines, to avoid answering any of your questions and to avoid nailing down where they were, what they were doing. And so this is exactly what drives people to become private detectives, because it turns into a game of, I can't say to them, I saw you with another woman or another man. They have to have a photograph, because they know that when they say, I saw you, that person is going to provide these jumbled sentences and jumbled words that will inevitably pull you away from the original accusation and get you to argue about something that happened 5 years ago, right? So the people that are cheated on, they can make themselves insane trying to get the narcissist personality disorder to admit, yes, I'm cheating on you, or yes, I stole from you, right? I can't tell you how many women I've worked with who said to me, I knew I was at the end of my rope when I was sitting on my kitchen floor with trash that I was going through. Why are you going through trash? Because she was looking for receipts. She was looking for anything that she could hold up to her husband and say, see, here's the proof. Doesn't matter if you can talk around me. Here's the proof. We know Suzanne Morphew complained and said that her husband used scripture to avoid conversation about his infidelities, right? Absolutely leads to PTSD. No question about it. The discovery of infidelity in your marriage is horrifying. But when they start the trickle truth, they start the double speak, the word salad, it becomes downright traumatic or crazy making. And people get so confused on the priority. By the time they make it into my office, they're digging through dirty trash rather than saying to themselves, hold on a minute. It doesn't matter if I have proof. It doesn't matter if this jackass ever admits to me or not what they're doing. What matters is I have now lost control of my life. I need to get my control back. I need to find my dignity. I need to find my integrity, right? So, but it is this kind of conversation that you're witnessing right here. This is what is, when you read books and about personality disorder and whatnot, and they use the term crazy making. That's a real term that's used. This is what they're talking about. This kind of simultaneous conversation that she keeps 2 or 3 stories going. And that way, when she answers any question, she can pull from a different story and then act like, well, what's wrong? Are you having trouble keeping up? Well, of course you're having trouble keeping up because you are intentionally creating word salad by using multiple conversations and picking and choosing which conversation you're going to choose from to answer his questions.
Monogamous, and that's what monogamous means sexually, doesn't it?
Exactly, doing life my way. Yeah.
Well, in this
Insidious.
case, monogamous means sexually, doesn't it?
Restate your question.
When you say monogamous, it means sexually, doesn't it?
Which time?
What we're the time that we're talking
See
about.
her want to smile.
Involving Mr. Alexander, no other time.
Our relationship evolved, so.
I'm not asking you if it evolved. At the end, right when
She's
you killed
smug,
him,
isn't she?
you indicated that you were monogamous with him, right?
Yes.
And at that time, you then left the killing scene, if you will, and you went up to Utah, right?
Yes.
And when you went up to Utah,
Look how
then, you
demure
ended up with
she
the
gets.
president, Brian Burns, right?
Yes.
And you ended up in his bed, right?
I think it was a love sack.
Okay, and with regard to at that point, according to you, Mr. Alexander still wasn't dead, was he?
It wasn't discussed.
Well, did I ask you whether or not you discussed it with Mr. Burns? I didn't, did I?
I wasn't talking about Mr. Burns.
I'm asking you at that time, didn't you tell us yesterday, at the time that you went up to Utah, you weren't sure if he was dead? Do you remember telling us that?
Not in Utah, from the Hoover Dam, or right before the checkpoint.
So when did you know that he was dead? Tell me that.
Well, I got confirmation of it on June 10th, but
So, okay, if you got confirmation on June.
Okay, now I want to remind everybody, she shot him in the head. And it's my opinion that was the first violent blow, was the gunshot. But because the frontal lobe is kind of funny, and there are plenty of ways through the frontal lobe without affecting the cerebellum movement, old brain stuff like your heartbeat and that kind of thing, she was surprised that he continued to be able to walk, or maybe he crawled right from the shower over to the sink, pulled himself up on the sink, looking in the mirror. Now, I want to be really clear about this. It wasn't like, getting a little 1-inch cut and looking in the mirror and going, oh, wow, look at that cut. I wonder if I should go get stitches. No. He would have been, there would have been brain damage. There would have been a disconnect, even maybe from his memory. Like it's possible that this would have been instinctive movement, where the will to survive is just really, really strong, but he wasn't he would have been experienced like a high level of confusion. He may not have even recognized who Jodi was, or he may not have really even recognized where he was in the moment. But just that instinct to survive, to get back up on his feet, it must have been there because he was trying to make his way to the door, like he was trying to go for help, right? So on some level he was processing, but I don't believe that it was a normal level of processing. He would have been really, really confused. And I think it threw her off. It scared her, and she didn't know what was happening. She really thought, I'll shoot him in the head. We'll be done with this. She was so sick and manipulative. She took a photograph of the fear on his face. This is a disgusting human being right here. I'm sorry, but people that have serious personality disorders like narcissism, right? These are disgusting people. The lies they tell about other, and they lie without any kind of personal shame. They think it's funny to spread lies about people they don't like. They think it's a funny thing to do, and then to sit back and watch the fallout. So she shot him. And then when he continued to move about to try to save himself, she gets a knife and she stabs him like 27 times. Most of the stabs were in the back. Some were in the front, in his arm, but 27 times. He's still making his way down the hallway to get out the door. He's still putting one foot in front of the other. His will to survive was so powerful. And I think that when he finally went down, probably from loss of blood, when he finally went down, she grabbed him by the head and cut his throat. That was it. Now she's playing games going, well, no, I think I thought he might be dead maybe around Hoover Dam. Not Utah, but I got confirmation on the 10th. Yeah, that's how I want to answer you. I got confirmation on the 10th that he was dead. No, lady, you shot him in the head, you stabbed him 27 times, and then you nearly decapitated him. You knew he was dead before you left that house. So these word games, let this serve as a warning to you. If this kind of talk, circular talk, if this is the kind of thing you're dealing with a friendship or a spouse or something like that, take a step back and don't engage in it. Don't let them dominate and make you look foolish. You see how smug she is. She knows damn well she's doing it. Stop being a marionette, a puppet to the narcissist in your life. Choose your next step with determination, with the goal being, what do I want my day to be like? What kind of day do I want to have? Instead of waking up and feeling burdened because once again you spent the night arguing with your husband or wife or whatever. No, I want to have a good day. Arguing is not going to solve anything. This person lacks the ability to admit bad things they've done. I think tonight I'll watch a movie and go to sleep in peace. I'll just accept that I'm married to a narcissistic liar. See what I mean? All right.
June 10th, you met with Mr. Burns, what, before June 10th, didn't you?
Yes.
You met him on the 5th, right?
Yes.
And so at that point, you didn't know, according to your own story, that Mr. Alexander was dead, right?
I guess I knew. I wasn't accepting it.
You either knew or you didn't. Which one is it, man? Make up your mind, please.
Objection, ask and answer.
Ask another question.
Did you know he was dead when you were Mr. Burns?
You gotta love Juan Martinez, right? The judge says, ask another question, and Juan says, was he dead? Did you know he was dead? Like, how much more simple can you ask, right? It's so funny. Oh, she's so arrogant and flippant. Absolutely. Gigi, you're a great sponsor of the channel. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. So Juan is just like, okay, I'll ask another question. Did you know he was dead? Like at all? And again, remember, shot in the head, stabbed 27 times, nearly decapitated. She's claiming it didn't occur to her that he might be dead, maybe around Hoover Dam. God. Oops. Sorry about that.
Objection, ask and answer. This is the
Overruled.
question.
Overruled.
Yeah, I think I did.
You think you did, but you're not sure of that.
I wasn't really in my own mind. I was out of my mind, sort of.
Yeah, you are
So
out of
if
your
you
mind.
didn't think he was dead, if that portion of you didn't think he was dead, then it's okay for you, at that point, if you didn't think he was dead, to sort of roll around with Mr. Alexander then, with Mr. Burns.
In the love
That
bag.
was okay, right?
I'm single.
Oh God, this woman.
Just like he was on August 7th of 2000, on August 8th of 2000, in August of 2007, right?
Yes.
So it's okay for you, then it should be okay for him, right?
It was okay.
Then why did you confront him the next day if it was okay?
Because he was still courting me. I wanted to know where I stood.
He wasn't
And
courting
so
you,
because
lady.
of he was still, your definition, courting you, you felt that you deserved an explanation, right?
Yes.
Hadn't you just had intercourse with Mr. Alexander on the 4th of June?
Yes.
And if he was still alive, he would have deserved an explanation then for you being with Mr. Burns, right?
No.
Well, no, aren't we, you're applying a different standard here, aren't you?
No.
You're saying, one, it's okay for you to confront him about the situation, but not okay for Mr. Alexander to confront you, right?
If he wanted to confront me, it would have been okay.
Now,
Golly.
with regard to the exhibit number 452, it does show you, right? Correct?
Yes.
And it shows again Angela, correct?
Yes.
Shows something else on there though, doesn't it? Doesn't it show your hand?
Yes.
And in fact, let me show you another close-up of that. Exhibit 453 is a close-up of your hand, right?
Yes.
And you can also see the jewelry around your sister's neck.
Yes.
Exhibit 453, correct?
Yes.
And you previously have told us about Exhibit 452 and when it was taken and who's in that photograph, correct?
Yes.
I move for the admission of Exhibit 453.
No objection.
And ma'am, this was also taken according to your testimony on May 15th. Let's take a look at that, of 2008.
Look at her ring finger.
That's a picture of your left hand, isn't it?
Yes.
And that shows your ring finger, right?
Yes.
Do you remember that you testified that on January 22nd of 2008, you and Mr. Alexander were involved in some sort of violent encounter? Do you remember telling us about that?
Yes.
And you told us that during that encounter, he threw you down. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And while you were down, that he kicked you, right?
Yes.
And when he kicked you, ma'am, one of the things that happened was that you put up your left hand. Do you remember telling us that?
Yes, both hands.
Well, you told us specifically about your left hand, right?
Yes.
And when you went to put up your left hand, according to you, he kicked you and he damaged your ring finger on the left hand, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, you even held it up for us, didn't you?
Yes.
And it was crooked when you showed it to us, wasn't it?
It's bent. Yes.
It's bent. Show us how bent it is again, ma'am.
That's so stupid.
Higher, so we can see it sideways.
It's so dumb.
Ma'am, if he caused that damage on January 22nd of 2008, that would have been before this picture that we have here, which is exhibit number 453. It would have been about 5 months before that, right?
It was before that.
5 months, right?
4.
4 months then, right?
Yes.
You don't have a bent finger here in exhibit 453, do you?
My finger is bent there.
You're saying that your finger is bent there.
Yes. Just
Hold
the
up your
same.
finger again.
Don't believe your own eyes.
Sideways so we can all
Don't believe your lying eyes. Don't believe what you hear.
And that's what it
Just
looks like, your
listen
finger-
to what I
your
tell
finger
you.
has
Don't
to have
rely
a
on your own
2008,
senses.
Right?
Yes.
That
Now, one
is
of other
the
things
mark
involving this particular finger,
of
it
a
seems to have had
narcissist.
its run, if you will, of bad things happen to it, right?
This finger?
Yes, the left ring finger.
I don't know.
Well, you talked to Ryan Burns about it, didn't you?
Yes.
And you told him that that finger, the left ring finger, had been damaged, right? Injured, didn't you?
I don't know if it was the left.
She is, oh man, infuriating. So Teresa brings up a great point, and I want to comment on it because she's completely right. Jodi got into Travis's home one time by going through the doggy door. You think she's not obsessed? You think this woman is just like everyone else? She literally got on her hands and knees and squeezed in through a doggy door. Travis comes home and there she is. There she is. So you see her now acting like, well, look, I just did what everybody else does. I just walked around the backyard. It, was really nothing to it. Why are you asking me these questions? What's wrong with you? Yeah, I just had dinner with a coworker. Yeah, it was not a big thing. There was a lot of traffic on the road. We just thought, oh, I don't want to sit in all this traffic. Why don't we stop, get some dinner before we go home to our spouses? Why are you acting like that's a problem, honey? We were hungry. We just needed some food. It's just like you to make everything a problem. Everything. What do you think? You think I'm also screwing around with my secretary? You think I'm screwing around with your friend? I mean, like, you accuse me of screwing around with everybody. Next thing I know, you're going to say I'm screwing around with the maid. What's wrong with you? It was just dinner. Traffic was bad. We were letting some time pass before we got on the road because of the traffic. I really, honey, you seem crazy. I think we should probably get you an appointment with the psychiatrist. Maybe you're having some depression, need some antidepressants, maybe. So Jodi is the kind of person that does this to people. She has no compunction at all about putting herself in a good light, as she then uses lies to make her partner go to a psychiatrist and say, "Oh my God, I'm losing my mind." So recognize this type of speech pattern. Recognize how she's avoiding answering the questions. This is a common tactic. When I was doing the research for my dissertation, I was struck by how similar so many of these stories were. And it didn't matter if it was men or women. It didn't matter if the cheater, the person committing infidelity, it didn't matter if they were men or women. They all had the same tactics that they used against their spouse. And some of it, they were downright aggressive with the spouse, saying, "You're insane," taking them to a psychiatrist. I had one lady who the psychiatrist laughed and said, "Ma'am, you're not crazy, but your husband is having affairs, and you probably need to make a decision if that's the way you want to live your life." So the psychiatrists, they recognize the pattern. They get these poor people come in and they're all torn up because they've discovered infidelity. The cheater who is like this type of personality, a person who is cheating in a marriage, they believe they're entitled. They believe it's okay if they do that. And they'll find a million different excuses to say, "This is why I'm cheating." But the reality is they're cheating because they're broken on the inside. They have an empty hole that will never be filled. But they use it as an excuse. So recognize this pattern and don't let yourself be drawn into conversations with this.
You don't remember telling me
Unless
that
you're
you
Juan
were-
Martinez.
Do you have a problem with memory?
Occasionally.
And so some of the things that you've told us, for example, then about other things in the past, you may have also had problems with your memory then, right?
Yes.
And so whatever you told us in the past is somewhat suspect then, because your memory may be lacking.
Objection, argumentative.
I only told things I remember clearly that are crystallized in my mind.
With regard to Mr. Burns, you do remember who he was, right?
Yes.
And you do remember that you went over to West Jordan to meet him, right?
Yes.
And you do remember that you did meet him that Thursday, and it was sometime around 11 o'clock in the morning, right?
I think so, yes.
And when you met him, you guys decided to go somewhere to a restaurant for some sort of business meeting, right?
Yes.
And during that time, didn't you have a bandage on your finger?
Yes.
And it was your left finger, wasn't it?
No.
It was your right finger then, right? Is that what you're saying? It was your right finger?
It was 2 right fingers.
So it was your right finger then, right? Ma'am, are you sure that it was your right finger?
It was 2.
Pardon?
2 right fingers.
Do you remember then that you had a conversation with Detective Flores about this issue involving the finger?
Yes.
And do you remember that that was on July 16th of 2008?
Yes.
And did you remember that you told him that on June 4th, you had been over at Mr. Alexander's home, right?
Yes.
And you told him that you were over at Mr. Alexander's home and that some guy and some girl had come in, right?
Yes.
And during
In the
whatever
ninja
happened on June
suits.
4th, you told Detective Flores that it was your left finger that had been damaged. Do you remember that?
Yes.
So you did tell that to the detective that it happened on June 4th, right?
Yes.
Does that then refresh your recollection, and we'll play it so that we know what we're talking about?
You said you were fighting with her.
Yeah.
What happened to you?
She cut me.
Where at?
You
Can you
actually
show
can't
me?
see it. If you look at him, my finger isn't the same though. I was
Let me
really,
see.
No matter how crazy she got, Travis still allowed her back in his
it
life.
was
He had
for me,
no
it was
idea.
back in the crease.
Right
Yep.
on the crease.
Can you see? Oh, it's kind of in purple color, I
This
guess.
one here,
Same
right
kind
here.
of this.
Look how close they have to look to try to find
Oh, there's a
something.
vein on this one, maybe.
Oh, it's a vein.
Is this one here? So a slice there.
Yeah.
Just a small one? Or was it pretty deep?
I don't know how deep it was, but my finger hurt for a while.
Okay. So like right in that crease that you, right, across both of them?
Not my middle finger. It cut this one a little, but not as much. This is where it really went. I don't know how it happened. The thumbs
Horrible,
and my fingers are
horrible
close, but
woman.
This one, yeah, I don't know. This one, like I still can't close this finger all the way. It's as close as it goes. Whereas this one goes like that. Also, my CTR ring used to fit both fingers, and I can't get
So
it.
see, in the video, she's saying she can't close her hand, but when she shows everybody in the jury, she acts like she can't open it.
But again, like my CTR ring slides right on this finger, and it used to slide right.
Liar, liar, liar.
I just can't fit a ring on here.
Okay.
It's a bigger size now.
You notice how they have the same
This
voice?
here, what's that from?
That's my cat.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure she scratches me a lot.
That tape or that videotape, right?
Yes.
And that's you having the conversation discussing the left ring finger, right?
Yes.
And you demonstrated to Detective Flores that left ring finger, right?
Yes.
And you told him that this woman, during this attack on June 4th of 2008, cut you right there, didn't you?
Yes.
And you showed him, and the finger, if we look at it there, had the same aspect or had the same angle to it that your finger does now, doesn't it?
Yes.
Okay. So, Doing Life My Way has a great quote, and this goes back to reactive violence, right? It is, this is what it comes down to. So Doing Life My Way says, before you call yourself crazy, take a look at the assholes that you're surrounded by, right? Are you being manipulated by this kind of human being right here? Someone who lies with impunity, avoids any type of definitive answer, hijacks any statement that you make, because those are all tactics of that are crazy making. Reactive violence is when people have been pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, and it's almost like having a hurt animal get backed into a corner, and they avoid, and finally they act out in a very instinctive manner. And a lot of times they're quite vicious when they do it. That's why you've got a lot of people that are serving life in prison, because they killed their cheating husband or cheating wife. When you go back into their history, you find out for 5-10 years, they've been trying to get their spouse to quit cheating, and they refuse. And they play these kind of word games like what you're seeing here. And then they act out in an instinctive manner. And that's what they call reactive violence.
Ma'am, the injury to your finger happened on June 4th, 2008, not January 22nd of 2008, did it?
That's not correct.
Ma'am, with regard to the story involving this particular issue, you told us that it happened on January 22nd of 2008, right?
Which issue?
The left ring finger.
Yes.
You then discussed it, or there was this issue with Ryan Burns, right?
Which issue?
The cut finger.
The cut finger, yes.
And
2
then
cut fingers.
on July 16th of 2008, you discussed it with Detective Flores, right?
Yes.
One of the things that you told Mr. Burns was that you cut it at Margaritaville while you were working there, right?
No, I did not say
You never
that.
told him that then, right?
I said at work.
So you never told him Margaritaville, then, right?
No, he said that.
Right, but you never told him that you cut it at Margaritaville, right?
No,
You told him that you cut it at work, then, right?
yes,
God
And then
almighty,
when you
this
spoke to
woman.
Detective Flores, you gave him a different story. You didn't say that it was cut at work. You told him that it was cut some other way, right?
yes,
And then you testified about it in this court, right?
yes,
And you gave us another story of how this happened, right?
no,
Well, do you remember that you testified that you were at Mr. Alexander's home on June 4th, 2008 at the sink? Do you remember telling us that?
yes,
And do you remember telling us that you dropped the glass in Mr. Alexander's house?
June 4th,
Whatever date you were there at Mr. Alexander's house.
I broke more than one glass at his house.
Ma'am, do you remember
There's a
testifying
red
yesterday
flag.
about how you suffered this injury to your finger? Yes or no?
Not this finger.
No? Do you remember testifying that involving your finger, your left ring finger yesterday, as a matter of fact, that was cut when you dropped the glass when you were at Mr. Alexander's house on the day that you killed him?
I did not indicate my left finger. I said my
Oh, so you
finger.
were saying it was your right finger that you cut in Mr. Alexander's house, right?
It was my right finger, yes.
So throughout this whole thing, Mr. Burns, when he indicated what finger it was, he was mistaken. Well, not he was mistaken. You're saying you never told Mr. Burns that it was the right finger that you cut, right?
We didn't discuss which hand.
Okay, so you never indicated to him in any way, shape, or form that it was the right finger.
Sustained.
And this issue of the 22nd of January 22nd, when you injured, when you say that you were injured, you kept a journal, didn't you? You kept the journal, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And you didn't write in it all the time, but you wrote in it some of the time, right?
Frequently, yes.
Frequently. And you were writing about what was going on in your life back in January of 2008, right?
Yes.
And you would write about things that were significant.
Some things.
Right, and in fact, with
She is a
regard to,
snake.
this particular journal, you knew that you could almost write anything that you wanted in it because it was going to stay private, right?
No.
Well, man, let me show you, or let me mark what I'm doing.
Me too, Emily. This woman she takes the cake. And the poor siblings, right? It breaks your heart. Me too, Desired.
Take a look at the entry, just read it to yourself, on Sunday, August 26th of 07.
The whole entry?
Just read the first 5 lines. 6 lines.
Yes.
You wrote that, right?
Yes.
Take a look at exhibit number 455. Is this a true and accurate copy of those 5 or 6 lines?
Yes.
And you wrote that back on August 26th of 07, right?
Yes.
Look at the admission of exhibit number
455 is admitted.
Take a look at August 26th of 07. I'm reading it.
Just this one entry.
Yes, just that one entry of August 26th of 07.
Okay.
I know you have 2 entries, but the first entry is the one we're talking about.
Yeah, it looks like I have 3 on that day.
So have you read the first entry that involves this particular snippet?
Yes.
This journal and your journals were meant to be private, right?
Yes.
And that's what it says there. Well, I guess it's a good thing that nobody else reads this, because I write right now that I love Travis Victor Alexander so completely that I don't know any other way to be, correct? That's what it says.
Yes.
Do you remember when we started talking this morning that we talked about an incident where you went over to his house?
Yes.
And this was the incident that you referenced involving the killing, right? That it went through your head, right?
You're talking about the incident in August 2007?
Right, exactly.
Yes.
And that incident in August of 2007, where you went over and peeked inside of his house, happened before this entry here of Sunday, August 26th of 07, right?
What was the last thing you said?
He said, by saying Pete.
Restate your question.
When you looked inside the house.
Yes, it did happen before this entry.
Right, and so really the reason why you confronted Mr. Alexander was not because he owed you an explanation or anything like that. The reason you confronted him back in August of 2007 was because you were in love with him and you didn't want to let him go, right?
Objection, argumentative.
That wasn't argumentative.
That's not right. But I was in love with him.
Yes, you did write this though, didn't you?
Yes.
Now, you kept more than one journal, you kept a number of them, right?
I kept one journal at a time.
Okay. Let's take a look at another journal.
Oh, definitely, Scott. Yeah, no, she's definitely got the shark eyes. They're just vacant and cold.
Yes.
She looks right through you. Yeah.
2.002. That's your writing in throughout that whole journal, right?
Yes.
There is an entry for Thursday, January 24th, 2008, right?
Yes.
Let's just take a look at it. See that?
Yes.
Let me mark another exhibit for you. Take a look at exhibit 456. The exhibit that you have in front of you, that's the whole entry for January 24th of 2008, correct?
I believe it is for the single one, yes.
There are other entries, but that's the complete entry for that one.
Yes.
correct? Because it's written in blue ink, right?
Yes.
And the other ones are written in black ink, right?
Yes, the one following.
We move to the admission of exhibit number 456. And again, take a look at this exhibit number 242002. We talked about the entry of January 24th of 2008. Take a look at this journal. And isn't it true that the previous, in terms of chronological time, that the previous entry is on January 20th of 2008?
Yes.
So there's a gap of 4 days between the time you wrote on January 20th and on January 24th of 2008, right?
Yes.
Nothing in between, correct?
Not in the journal.
I'm asking.
Golly.
That's
Is there
correct.
anything else in front of you?
Ask and answer, Your Honor, an argumentative.
Sustained.
In the journal, man, there are no other entries between January 20th of 2008 and January 24th of 2008, right?
Yes.
If we then take a look at exhibit
Me too,
456
Nancy.
and see what you wrote on Thursday, January 24th of 2008. You wrote, I haven't written because there has been nothing noteworthy to report, correct?
Yes.
Didn't you tell us, involving the finger, that this injury to your left finger, when Mr. Alexander went to kick you, that happened on January 22nd of 2008?
Yes, it did.
And yet you write here that nothing noteworthy has happened, right?
Yes.
And then you also write that you turned down 4 offers for a date on Friday night, right?
Yes.
You were free to date, and so was he, right?
Yes.
And then you finish it out by talking about going up to the snow, right? See that?
Yes.
You're going to go up there skiing, you crossed it out, and you just are going to go up to the snow, right?
Yes.
Did you go skiing?
No, I don't ski.
Pardon?
I don't ski. No, I didn't go.
All right. The entry of January 20th of 2008. Take a look at exhibit number 242.02.
Yeah, Teresa, the
Please.
her finger, that's look at her finger there. It's perfectly normal.
Between the
Yeah,
two?
she's a
Your entry of Sunday, January 20th of 2008. you want me to show you where it is
I
here?
have it. It's 4 and a few lines.
And it starts on the lower left-hand corner with 3 lines if you count the date, indicating January 20th of 2008, right?
Yes, I'm sorry, I misspoke. It's 5 pages and a few lines.
And in it, one of the things that you talk about is this issue involving Lonnie's baptism, right?
I haven't read it. Can I read it?
Sure, go ahead.
I moved away from Lonnie, so if you want me to finish it, if you're going to ask me about the rest of the entry, I can read the
I'm
rest.
asking
She's so helpful,
the
isn't
full
she?
entry of Sunday, June
Okay.
20th, 2008,
Okay.
right?
Yes,
It does talk about Lonnie's baptism, right?
yes.
And previously, when you testified, you indicated that the reason you missed
She's a
Lonnie's
rat
baptism
fink, Pixelate
because
me.
you and Mr. Alexander were involved in a sexual
Terrible
liaison,
person.
right?
Yes,
And this was the sexual liaison where the Pop Rocks and the Tootsie Pops were involved, right? That's
I
what
have-
you said, right?
I'd have to reference dates.
So we're back to playing word games now.
And see if that refreshes your recollection as to what you told us on February 12th.
She was-
I would appreciate that.
All right, I will, starting on page 5. Wow, read that.
Would you like me to read it out loud? Just the highlighted portion?
Nope, just keep reading it.
Okay. Starting at the bottom, right?
Right. Have you read the entire transcript that deals with the sexual encounter involving the Pop Rocks and Tootsie Pops?
Yes, I started where you highlighted and
Well-
finished it.
Read it above it. Does that have anything to do with the Tootsie Pops or the Rock Pops?
Okay,
Does the upper portion have anything to do with it? Or not?
yes.
Why don't you read the previous page just to make sure that we covered everything involving that particular encounter?
There's nothing about the pop rocks on this page.
There is nothing before that, correct?
Yes.
Nermy hates her.
For the entire transcript. I don't believe she has at this point.
Read the entire transcript.
Irrespective of the date that we're talking about, whether it was January 20th or January.
Hannah forgot about the Pop Rocks.
You do reference the Pop Rocks and Tootsie Pops sexual incident by reference to Lonnie's baptism, right? The journal
Yes.
entry of January 20th of 2008 also references Lonnie's baptism, doesn't it? Take a look at
Yes.
Exhibit 458. This is 458.
Yes.
And that's a true and accurate copy in front of you, the excerpt of what's in your journal involving Lonnie's baptism and the sexual encounter, isn't it?
Yeah, let me make sure I'm just referring to the same day in my journal.
Well, let's take a look at it. Let me have that. The first entry is identical on the first page that indicates Sunday, January 20th, 2008, correct?
Yes, that's when I wrote the entry.
Okay. Then, as we continue on, there is the entry involving the baptism, right?
So smug.
You see
Absolutely.
that? That entry is there involving Lonnie's baptism?
Yes, I just don't know if I'm referencing the 20th on that part of the entry.
Ma'am, is there any other intervening date between the January 20th of 2008 where we started and the very end where you put JA? Is there any other date in it?
No.
That I did.
Yes or no?
There might be, I haven't.
Well, why don't you take a look? Let's take a look at the first page. First page starts Sunday, January 20th, 2008, doesn't it?
When I wrote it, yes.
Does it start out saying
When
Sunday,
she wrote
January
it.
20th, 2008, yes or no? And isn't it true that it starts out in bold ink, right?
Yes,
And then it continues on in blue ink, right?
yes.
And it flows, doesn't it?
Yeah, Emily,
That's
it's just leftover
Word flow
congestion
from
that's
what's at the bottom there
still
to the
kind
next
of
page. Don't.
coming loose.
So then when we go to the bottom of it, the next page is also in blue ink, right?
If I start
And the next
laughing,
page, there
I
is no
start
other
coughing
date
again.
reference, is there?
She needs to review it before she can answer the
She's looking
question.
at it.
Maybe.
Thank you.
No, ma'am. Don't turn the page. I just want you to look at that next page to see if you see a date.
Oh, that's not the question. Overruled.
I didn't write a date.
No, there is no date on there, is there?
No.
Okay, let's turn the page. And that page is also in blue ink, right?
Yes.
And there is no date on that next page, is there?
That's correct.
You see how he's having to take each individual step and get her to agree just to stop her from playing her word games. You know, here's page 1. Do you see a date? Here's page 2. Do you see a date? Here's page 3. Do you see a date? She's playing games. She knows she is. She's intentionally trying to introduce confusion. That's part of the gaslighting process, right? So that's when I say, recognize this pattern, because all narcissists do this. Some of the borderline personality disorder, they're pretty good at it too sometimes. So when you find yourself confronted with a person like this, with a lot of doublespeak, don't engage. It's an exercise in futility. You don't have to make them finally admit they're doing it. Once you get enough information and evidence that you know the truth, then just be happy you have the truth, and then begin to make choices for you. Begin to make choices for you to have the kind of life that you want. And start out with, I know what I want my day to be like. Now, what do I have to do to make my day be that way? Give up the never-ending battle of trying to pin this person down on truth. You see the extent that Juan Martinez is having to go through. You live in your life like that every day, where you have to break things down into their simplest pieces, and then have the liar in your life say yes or no. It is exhausting. It will rob you of your happiness and joy. It will rob you of your sanity. Don't get sucked into the madness. If you've got someone that's doing this to you, then accept what you're dealing with. Accept that they're not going to ever give you the truth, and start making your choices for your own happiness, right? Exactly, Hannah. And it doesn't matter if it's male form or female form. When you listen to Jodi and her word games, you can recognize it, can't you? You hear it coming out of the people in your life. Yeah.
Then let's look at the page following that. That page where you have your left hand on, that's also in blue ink. No, you turn the page, go back. That's also in blue ink, correct?
Yes,
And there is no date on there either, is there?
that's correct.
Let's turn the page. And then on the
Never
next page,
admit lying, Hannah.
that's also
Never.
in blue ink, correct?
Yes,
And there's no date on that either, right?
that is correct.
The next page after that contains the initials JA, right?
Yes,
That's for Jodi Arias, correct?
yes,
And that's also in blue ink, correct?
yes.
And there's no date in that one, is there?
There is not.
And if you turn the page, go ahead. There's an entry for January 24th of 2008, right?
Yes,
We can then go back, turn the page once. We're looking at the entry that says JA on it, right?
yes,
We go to the previous page, the one that you're pointing to. It does start, if I may have it back, with a word that's in quotations, right?
yes,
Exhibit number 458 includes that particular portion of the entry in quotations, right?
yes,
Then if we go to the previous page, At the
Ooh,
bottom of the
Emily,
page,
having a boss like this, oh, that is brutal. Absolutely
also in blue ink,
brutal.
right?
Yes.
The entry that I'm showing you now includes that last paragraph, right?
Second to last.
Second to last paragraph. Well, if you take a look at the bottom, you see that there's a word
Oh, I
that's,
apologize. You're correct.
okay? So in essence, what we're talking about is that the one with the word that's crossed out then travels on to the next page, and that's what's included in this entry, correct? In Exhibit 458, right?
Yes.
Along with the first page that includes the date, right?
Yes.
And
My
the
daughter's father is the
entry
male version
or
of
Exhibit
this.
458
Yeah, Hannah,
references
you
Lonnie's
recognize it,
baptism,
don't
right?
you?
Yes.
This type of word evasion. It's abusive. It's traumatic to have to deal with these people. I mean, Nermi
Some additional
was
time.
traumatized by
Gentlemen, we
Jodi
are going to take the
Arias.
noon recess at this time.
He
Please be
begged
back in the jury
multiple
room at
times,
1:25.
begged the
Remember
judge,
the admonition.
please let me off of this case. He begged, and this judge refused, absolutely refused. It is crazy making. It can give you PTSD. It can drive people to reactive violence. It's awful when you have someone that uses these word communication tactics to traumatize you. And they're smug. They think they're being cool. You'll never catch me. You'll never catch me in a lie. Just do yourself a favor and don't try to catch them in a lie. The very fact that they're getting joy from this cat and mouse game, that ought to tell you everything you need to know and make your decisions accordingly, right? Nermi left the profession and Juan Martinez is out. Yeah. But Nermi was absolutely traumatized. Absolutely traumatized. She is a if I'll tell you this, had they put Chandler Halderson on the stand, we probably would have seen more of this type thing that Jodi does. Chandler would have done the same. I mean, look at the extent that Chandler went to commit fraud, to cover up his lies with his parents. I mean, he's inventing emails back and forth between two imaginary people just so that he's got something that he can forward to his dad. Yeah, will never admit wrongdoing. Never. Very good. Yes, Nermi's, but well, Juan's got a book too called Conviction. Both of their books are excellent. I think with Nermi, it's really interesting in terms of the reflection of working with someone with such a severe personality disorder, right? He talks about the experience of having to manage her behavior and how that she was her worst enemy. She was very helpful in the conviction because of her games and the belief that, her arrogance, the belief that she was going to get off, from the charges and all that. But Juan Martinez's book is very interesting from a different perspective. How he made his decision to control the courtroom, how he made the decisions in the moment to kind of put his finger on each word she said, rather than giving her the freedom to expound on what she wanted her answer to be. I think it's the norm that if you're the prosecutor, you want that witness to run off at the mouth. You want that witness to speak freely because you're going to catch them. The more words they say, that increases the likelihood that you're going to get a gotcha moment, right? But he made the decision not to allow that with Jodi because she's so incredibly manipulative. I think Casey Anthony, same type of personality, right? So manipulative, without any boundaries, without any code of integrity, zero empathy. I mean, she is a shark, a snake, cold and empty, just sort of living life by the reptilian brain, right? If I'm, eat, sex, sleep. And that was about the extent of her desires. So when you're dealing with these people and they start this evasion and the crazy making, recognize what you're dealing with. Recognize it. Nurmi recognized it. He knew what it was. And listen, you want to know how bad this was? That Nurmi, of all people, is begging to get off this case. Let me tell you, Nurmi was court appointed, but his specialty was defending pedophiles, rapist. He was court appointed for dealing with sex crimes. And even Nurmi, who's heard the most horrendous, egregious stories on the planet, even Nurmi was freaked out by Jodi Arias. All right. Y'all are so sweet to help me start my Friday. I think because I was able to come here and spend time with you guys, I think it's going to be a great Friday, right? What do you think, Emily? It's going to be a good one, right? All right. Thank y'all so much for being here. We will move to part 2 tonight. How does that sound? Is that good? Gigi, thank you again. Really, I appreciate your help. All right, everybody. I'm going to work. Y'all have a wonderful, fabulous Friday. I think it's going to be a great day. It's actually cold in Galveston, Texas. We actually had some icing last night. A bit further south, it was snowing in Mexico and Corpus Christi. So it's kind of crazy. The weather is really crazy right now. But it is cold out there this morning. So I'm going to wear my leather fur-lined gloves and be all sassy. And then at noon, it's going to be back up to, 50 or 60, I think 60 degrees. But I'll be able to dress like it's wintertime when I go into work. So that'll be fun. All right. All right. Thank y'all so much for being here, hanging out with me, watching what is absolutely my favorite trial, right? This is probably my favorite trial. I wish we could have seen the Scott Peterson trial. I think I would have enjoyed that very much. But definitely the Jodi Arias is my favorite. So, all right. Thank you all for being here. I hope that you will remember to give either a thumbs up or a thumbs down or leave me a comment. All of those things help the channel by pushing the algorithm to pay attention to the channel. So I hope you'll do that for me. And feel free to share the video on your social media. I don't mind. All right. Okay, everybody, it is Friday. I know we're all going to have us a fabulous day, and then we'll meet back here tonight. Okay? Y'all have a great day. Bye.